point I'm trying to get to, Mr. President, is student loan debt in America has surpassed credit card debt in America, and it is growing by leaps and bounds. Decisions are being made by young people and their supportive parents and grandparents, I'll talk about that in a minute, to get deep in debt to go to a school. These young people think they're doing the right thing. They've been told all their lives, don't quit at high school. You need to pick up additional education, additional skills, perhaps a bachelor's degree or a professional degree. And so they instinctively feel like they're doing the right thing for themselves. And they instinctively feel that if the federal government is loaning money to the students to go to the school, that must be a good school, right? Federal government wouldn't loan money if it were a bad school. The honest answer is some of these are very bad schools. There are three numbers to remember when you talk about for-profit schools. 10, the percentage of high school graduates going to for-profit schools, 10%. 25, the percentage of federal aid to education going to for-profit schools, 25%. 50, the percentage of students defaulting on their student loans, 50% going to for-profit schools. The reality is that the student loan default rate on for-profit schools is substantially higher than any other schools. And you can just open the box and look inside and say, I think I understand why. They're being charged too much in tuition, and they end up with training or an education that doesn't lead to a job, or doesn't lead to a job that pays money, enough money to pay back their student loans. The other thing is we passed a law here, and we said the for-profit schools in America can receive no more, get ready, than 90% of their revenue directly from the federal government. How close is this to a federal agency? 10%. That's all they need to be a completely federal agency. We send subsidies to these for-profit schools by way of Pell Grants and student loans to the tune of 90%, and if they train veterans, we waive that and let them go to 95% and higher. In the academic year 2009 and to 2010, for-profit colleges took in $31 billion in Title IV federal student aid, Pell Grants and student loans. For-profit colleges receive 1 out of every 4 Pell Grants given to institutions of higher education. Only 10% of the students going to these schools, 25% of the Pell Grants. As I mentioned, current law allows them to receive up to 90%. 90%. The for-profit college industry is just 10% away from being an actual federal agency. Let's put that aside for a moment and think about what $31 billion means to the private for-profit school industry. This chart is interesting because it compares the amount of money that we spend in a given fiscal year for a variety of things. How much does it cost us to run the Federal Bureau of Investigation for a year? Less than $10 billion. The Environmental Protection Agency, less than $10 billion. Customs and Border Patrol, about $10 billion. The Coast Guard, $10 billion. The Federal Aviation Administration, responsible for safe landing of airplanes all across the United States, that comes out to about $16 or $17 billion. The space program, that's about $18 billion. Then how about the National Institutes of Health? This is where we do all the medical research to find the new drugs and cures for diseases all across America. The annual expense there right at $30 billion. Take a look at the last bar. This is the federal subsidy to for-profit colleges, over $31 billion a year. $31 billion a year. 15% of the students who take out loans at for-profit colleges default within 2 years. That is double the rate of public colleges and 3 times the rate of private nonprofit colleges, which are historically more expensive. We spend more for for-profit schools than we do keeping planes in the sky or protecting our borders or tracking down criminals through the FBI or responding to disasters through FEMA are researching cures for cancer at the National Institutes of Health, are protecting the nation's food supply, are making sure that our air and water are safe for the people of America, are exploring the outer reaches of our universe. That's how much we are investing in this relatively new and horrendously expensive industry. And we are complicit. We are complicit because this federal government continues to offer Pell Grants and student loans to worthless schools. And students who sign up there think, well, if the federal government's going to loan some money, this must be a good school. So we are complicit in not policing the ranks of these for-profit schools on behalf of these students. And secondly, the outrage which I hear expressed on this floor all the time about overspending in the federal government should be directed as well at these for-profit schools. The annual subsidy of these for-profit schools, $31 billion, is greater than the amount that we spend as a nation for medical research in a given year. As a nation. So people who are intensely aware of our deficit, as the presiding officer is, who want to cut spending in wasteful areas, join me in taking a look at these for-profit schools.